The second FLA march took place today in central London. Just wanted to give some thoughts on it. The first one apparently attracted about 10,000 people. The FLA are claiming there were 30,000 people on today's march. I've got no idea of the exact figures. Various contradictory reports are coming out, and again for the second time the event has been blanked by the mainstream media, which is disgusting really. There are thousands of working class people raising legitimate concerns about rising extremism, and it's just silenced. The reason it's silenced, of course, is nobody wants working class people to make a murmur. That's it. That's the bottom line, and that's just disgusting. You know, I've got no time for that crap whatsoever. Now, I've offered solidarity to the FLA march. I'm a lefty, and I've got no problem with football fans, working class people expressing those concerns, those fears and those concerns. None whatsoever. And in fact, I would have gone down to the second one. I wanted to, I planned on doing so, but I had some stuff on and was unable to, unfortunately. But, you know, so my position on things as it's developed, on the information that I'm gathering, is that there does appear to be potentially a move to the right by the FLA leadership, that is, not the people who are on it. You know, there are thousands of people on that march who aren't racists, who aren't fascists, aren't Islamophobic. They've got concerns and they're expressing it. And considering the significant mobilisation that took place, I mean, it's obvious that we should be taking that seriously as the left, not shutting down those concerns, ignoring them, and spinning out the usual stereotypical responses and generalisations. Apparently the Socialist Worker Party were there, standing at the side, which to all intents and purposes was a counter-demonstration. So if you counter-demonstrate against it, you're in opposition to it and you create antagonism. I mean, if you're going to be there to engage, then be on the march and talk to people on the ground as it's developing. You know, so there was some abuse held apparently. Leaflets were screwed up and thrown back at them. You know, but surprise, surprise, I mean, you know, the way that you're going to come across by doing that, of course you're going to attract that kind of response. I'm just not surprised in the slightest bit. And again, it doesn't mean that the guys responding in that way are all racist, knuckle-dragging fascists. It's just you'd look ridiculous. You'd look like a bunch of out-of-touch, middle-class, trendy left students, and they were just giving you some banter. Yes, of course, there's always a chance that some of those guys who hurled abuse at you were proper dodgites, but, you know, how are you going to be able to distinguish that fact? There's a few other issues, like apparently Tommy Robinson was at the head of the march, or at least for a while, which again does hint at a moving to the right of the FLA, again, at least the leadership of it. Precisely what connection Tommy Robinson's got with it, I don't know. Some of the stuff on Twitter, both from some of the supporters and the official FLA Twitter feed, seems to be coming out with some stuff which is, you know, arguably right-wing. So my support for the FLA is critical, you know. It's not blind faith in everything that they say and everything that they do. Also, apparently some of the speakers down there today were a little bit reactionary and coming out with some stuff that arguably was a bit dubious. I haven't listened to all of those speeches all the way through. But I didn't particularly like the article in the Socialist Worker paper, although I read it online. It just, you know, the most important thing, in my opinion, is that there were thousands of people on both of those marches, predominantly working class people, who were pissed off and concerned about extremism. They're saying it's all extremism, but obviously it's primarily about Islamic extremism, let's face it. But it's the usual accusations of racism, of fascism, of Islamophobia. It's a complete denial from the broad left that it's denying that it has anything whatsoever to do with Islam. Of course it has. It is Wahhabist. These guys are Wahhabist fascists, basically. And Wahhabism is a branch of Islam. It's a fascistic, reactionary, religious extremist position that has no place in 21st century Western democracies. The fact of the matter is, it has to be made clear that it's not all Muslims that adhere to that. Of course it isn't. The problem is that the right, the populist right, the far right in particular, blame all Muslims, which is potentially very dangerous. But the left, just as stupidly and frankly just as dangerously, although it's like an inside-out version of the same thing, refuse to accept that it's got anything to do with Islam, or that any Muslims whatsoever are to blame, or that any kind of criticisms can be fired at Islam, which is as ridiculous, equally stupid and as equally dangerous. So I'm offering solidarity to those working class people who were on that march, who were concerned about rising Islamic extremism. It's something that the left should be taken seriously. If the far right were going around murdering people in equal numbers as these Wahhabist, fascist, extremist Muslims are, then it's obvious how the left would respond to that. They'd be going absolutely apeshit, absolutely batshit they'd be going. But again, when working class people begin to raise their own concerns about what's going on, they've got no time for it. Look, working class people are not interested in trendy, fashionable, campus left-wing nonsense. It's got nothing to do with their daily lives, nothing to do with their communities, nothing to do with the way that they carry themselves. And it's just about time now that we did begin to engage with those communities more, and that we got working class voices back involved. Because also, I'd add this finally, in closing, is that as much as I accept that those concerns are real and justified, and that you've got every right to have marched in London today, it's not just about Islam. It's broader issues that are affecting us as a class. It's the mental health crisis that is ripping our communities apart. It is the lack of jobs. It is the rise of 0 hours contracts, poverty pay, lack of housing, lack of social housing. It is a whole plethora of problems that are being fired against us as a consequence of austerity, the rich man's austerity. So all of these problems that are affecting us negatively as a class should be all brought together as one broader issue, which is us as working class people fighting back in defence of ourselves as a class. And that's why I'm pro-trade union, and that's why I'm militantly against cuts to services, to drug and alcohol services, to mental health services. I'm against the privatisation of the NHS. I fully support striking workers who are in struggle. And uniting those concerns, working class voices with working class fightbacks, not shutting down people and being able to engage with them on their own terms, is the way forward. And again, if we are incapable, which currently to a large extent it appears that we are, of communicating with working class people, then of course there is a risk that at some stage the FLA could come under the control of the far right. But until that happens, I'm still at this stage prepared to offer solidarity to the FLA, and certainly to the bulk, the vast bulk of those people who are on that march today.